I'm in the parking lot for the Devil's Postpile monument right outside of Mammoth Lakes, and I'm gonna head up to a Golden Trout lake today. I'm just sitting here packing my stuff. I probably should have done it yesterday, but we got in late and I wanted to get to sleep. I'm just gonna throw my gear in my bag. So I've got an SOL Escape Light. It's basically in an emergency blanket. Icebreaker 260 long sleeve wool shirt. Some silk leggings. Trusty honey badger, which I will put on my belt. Of course, my fishing gear. Hiking first aid kit, not as big as the first aid kit I take when I'm backpacking. My down jacket. Sunglasses. If you're a fisherman, you need polarized sunglasses. Some TP. I forgot my trowel, so I'm gonna have to make one out there. My filter. My ancient spot. Rain jacket. Gloves. My reel. And my Petzl now, which is my headlamp. Hat, of course. And that is it. So, of course, I've got my fishing rod and my trekking poles. I've got my waders. I've got an ace bandage today because my IT band is still acting up, and I didn't bring any KT tape, so it's not taped up. So I'm going to bring that just in case. And then the other thing that I brought that I don't normally carry with me is bear spray. Carrying bear spray today because this place is just lousy with bears. It's probably the only place that I've been to where I consistently see fresh bear sign. And this one particular lake, the last time I was there, there was fresh cup sign. So very bear active. Possibility of cubs, especially this time of year. Bears trying to feed up before the winter. So I'm not scared of the bears, but I'd just rather be safe than sorry. I'm crossing over the middle fork of the San Joaquin, which has fairly good fishing in its own right. So if I remember correctly, today's hike, it's going to be about 4 hours. It'll take me up to this ridge, down into a valley, and then I've got to go, keep climbing until I get to the lake. It's not a bad, well, it's a lot of up and down, but it's a really nice trail. So it's one that I enjoy doing. This area is great for fishing. There's the middle fork of the San Joaquin, which I just crossed, which is rainbows and brown trout. There's a golden trout in the upper reaches of the San Joaquin. The lake I'm going to today is a golden trout lake. There's some brook trout lakes, some brook trout creeks. Whew. And you can even catch one of the rarest trout in the world in this area, the Paiute. So it's really good, really good for fishing. Okay, less walking when I'm filming. Those are what they call the Devil's Postpiles. Basically, about 2 miles upstream, lava oozed out of the ground, flowed down here stopped, created a basically a large lava lake, and then as the lava lake cooled, it cracked at the top and the bottom, and it created those vertical pilings. I've come up over the first saddle and I'm heading down into the valley. There'll be a tiny creek crossing and then a larger creek crossing. But over there is where I'm headed. I have to tell you, I really enjoy this hike. I mean, how could you not? It's absolutely beautiful. It's just amazing. It's amazing country. And I'm happy to be here. So I've reached the first creek crossing, and you can see it's just a tiny trickle right now. But it does fish well for tiny brook trout, and I've caught a few golden rainbow hybrids in here. I've never fished this creek properly. I've only fished, you know, this crossing area, the pool, when I've had, you know, 30 minutes to stop and eat and just sort of hang out. But one of these days I'll come back, probably a little bit earlier in the season when there's a little bit more water, you know, better, you know, more places for bigger fish to hide. I've stopped at the creek just to pull out some food. Normally, yeah, my trail food consists of bars, and then, you know, maybe I'll bring a sandwich for lunch. But today I think I'm going all sandwich. So I brought 3 sandwiches. I'm already an hour in, so I typically start fueling after the first hour. The idea being that my body's gotten used to the effort. It's tapping into stored body fat and not tapping into glycogen stores to actually, you know, to fuel this trip. After an hour, I feel like, okay, the body's sort of engaged in what I want it to do. Now I can start bringing in extra calories and supplement that fat burning with, you know, with some carbohydrates. So I brought peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. That's high in fat as well. And then, you know, I'll have like half a sandwich every hour or so until I get to the lake. That all may seem a bit strange, but it's all about gauging your effort and gauging your fuel intake. You don't want to intake too much food, because then your stomach turns. You don't want to take too little, because then you bonk. And, you know, I certainly see today's effort as part of my ultra training. So instead of, you know, going out and running 20 miles today, you know, which is, you know, like 4 or 5 hours on the trail, you know, I'm going to come out here and I'm going to hike in for 4 hours, hike back for 4 hours. That's 8 hours on the trail. So when you're talking ultras, it's really, you know, it's all about time on your feet. So, you know, being at 7,000 to 10,000 feet, that extra effort is just going to help, at least in my fitness. I'm about an hour, 30 minutes, just over an hour and 30 minutes in. And now the climbing starts in earnest. It's been pretty much rolling until now. Finally starting to skirt across the ridge. I'm going to be up somewhere below that peak center frame. This is the first lake you come to on the trail. My buddy Roger and I have camped here before. I remember it being small brook trout lake. I've got to head up and over that saddle. So maybe another 30, 40 minutes and I should be at the lake. Always look back. I need a bigger knife. I'm coming into where I think the lake is. I say think because I've lost the trail. Pretty sure the trail is over there somewhere, but the lake is over there, so I'm gonna head that way. Well, finally made it. 3 hours, 36 minutes, which is faster than I expected, especially given all the filming I've done. I'm gonna find a place to sit, put my gear together. As I recall, the opposite bank was pretty good. So this is an absolutely beautiful lake, as you can see. The plan, as always, is to sight fish. So, oh, there's a fish right there. Very cool. I'm going to walk the bank, looking for fish. I'm going to cast to those fish. I know on the far side there's a sandbar. I'm going to need to wade out to it, but I know that's a productive spot. So when I get to about the halfway point on the lake, I'll put my waders on, wade on out to that sandbar, and hopefully pick up some fish. Well, I was just about to leave the spot where I was setting up, and this little guy came to hand. So it's a good start. I caught that first fish right in here. I'd seen a fish when I was setting up, you know, when I first got here, and I saw another smaller fish. Made a couple casts blindly because the wind was up and I couldn't see anything. And I was just about to give up, and I was reeling the fly in, and he went for it. Actually, he was chasing it down pretty hard. So I pulled the fly in, tossed it out again, and then gave it some twitches, and sure enough, it took it pretty aggressively. So that's a good start. It's really interesting because golden trout usually aren't that aggressive, and so for a fish to be chasing a dry fly across the surface, I don't know, maybe there's some damsels or dragons that'll be hatching later, and maybe that's you know, maybe that's the way I'm going to catch fish today. We'll see. I'm going to toss another one out and you know, give the dry fly a little more motion than you would typically give a dry fly. So I've switched to a nymph. I saw fish flashing around underwater, but they didn't seem interested in my dry, and so I put this nymph on. First or second cast, this little guy came to hand. The same, well, maybe a little smaller than the first guy. They seem to be hiding under the rocks, so I'm going to fish the rocks and see how that goes. And I'm moving. I'm checking the bank as I go. I'm always making sure to check the bank. Check the water closest to the bank ahead of me, and then scanning out towards the middle of the lake. A lot of times, you know, fish will hug, you know, within, you know, an inch or two of the bank, and if you're not watching, you could scare fish that would be an easy cast otherwise. So I've reached another point. It's deep. I'm not seeing any fish, but it could be worth a couple of blind casts. The wind is coming up and coming down. Hasn't decided yet which direction it's going to blow. One minute it's blowing, you know, from my right. The next minute it's blowing from my left. I hooked another fish on this point. It's really interesting. They're going for a fast retrieve. They're hanging out underneath the rocks. The strikes are aggressive. So I went a little deeper this time and got into a little better fish. I'm catching a bunch of fish on this side of the lake, but I'm not getting into the quality fish that I expect. I know there are, 13, 14-inch golden trout here. I just need to find them. So I think I'm gonna try over by the sandbar. That's where I was fishing, on that point and along that rock. So of course I just missed the biggest fish I've seen today. It was easily 13 inches. I'm walking the bank looking for fish, and it's bright red, stood out just as I was making my cast. The wind came up and started blowing in my face, and I made the cast, but I couldn't see the fish, couldn't see the fly, and it was so short that there was no retrieve. So that's fishing. I've moved over to the sandbar, and as you can see, this is the inlet. There's a narrow trench right along there, so I'd expect the bigger fish to be hanging out in there. I've seen a bunch of smaller fish right in here. So I'm on the other side of the sandbar, and it's interesting. I fished it from that side, and now I'm over here, and I'm getting take after take of larger fish, but I just haven't landed anything. You can see how choppy the water is. I mean, that wind is just coming right into my face. But if I can get out a 20 or 30 foot cast, there's fish piled up in there. Another beautiful gold. This one is pretty much what you would consider the classic golden trout colors: red belly, deep red stripe, claw marks. I'm almost around the lake. It doesn't seem to matter which direction you go. There's always a headwind. It's about, it's 3 o'clock, so I should probably get going. I have had a pretty good day out here. I've caught a lot of fish, missed a lot of fish. But, nothing more than like 8 inches or so. So I found the pattern for catching lots of fish. I just didn't find the big fish. I didn't mention earlier when I was talking about my gear that I'm carrying my Osprey Exos 38. I've got two of these. I've got a 38 and a 58. The 58 is what I use for backpacking, and the 38 is what I use for day trips. Well, this bridge marks the end of my journey, at least for today. Thanks for coming along.